A woman named Kisa Gautami loses her only son. She is overcome with grief. She cannot comprehend the loss, and she goes from one person to another seeking some respite. She is then told by someone to say that there is this gentleman by name Gautam Buddha. You should approach Gautam Buddha, and he's the only one who can possibly help you. So Kisa Gautami reaches out to Gautam Buddha and she says that I've heard you are the one who's exalted one who has attained nirvana. Can you please help me? She goes on to say that I would really like you to bring my son back to life. Buddha looks at her and says, well, you have reached the right place. I can certainly help you. Now, listening to this, Kisa Gautami has her hopes high. After that, Gautam Buddha says that for me to be able to bring your son back to life, I'll have to make a medicine. And for that medicine, as a part of the ingredient, I will need a fistful of mustard seeds. Go ahead and get them. As Kisa Gautami starts to make a move, Buddha stops her and says, with only one condition, the mustard seeds should come from a house which has not seen death, which has not met suffering. Kisa Gautami goes back to the village. She starts knocking from one door to another, and every door she goes to, she finds out that there were mustard seeds and they were very happy to offer it to Kisa. But she could not find even a single house that was untouched by death, that had not seen suffering. Once, tense, and eventually, when she reaches the 100th house, she gets the message. She understood what Gautam Buddha really wanted to say, and she cries out loud. She cries out loud not just for the sake that she lost her son, but for the fact that this entire earth, this entire universe is fraught with suffering. She then goes back to Buddha, and that's when she comes into the fold of Buddhism. Now, this is a pretty famous parable. In fact, if you were to Google Buddhism parables, this would come right at the top. It is known as the parable of mustard seeds. Now, this parable, whenever someone hears it, whenever someone listens to it, it makes different connotations to different people. But one thing that it definitely hits home is inevitability of death and universality of suffering. So again, it's no wonder that when Jarvis listened to this story as was being told by Lisa, the message hit home. But who's really Jarvis? Who's Lisa? For us to understand more on that, let's dive into this book. So when I picked this book to read, and I was looking at the cover of this book, as you would see, this is orange in color. And if you were to look at the O, which is in death row, the O in the last word, it seems like a sun. And somewhere on my mind, I was thinking, is this relating to a sunset image or is it relating to a sunrise image? And as I finished the book, I'm no better. That's the type of this book is, that it would leave you with emotions that would tug at your heart. It would leave you with feeling that you'll find difficult to process. And it's a book which is easy to read, but difficult to process. This book is a memoir of Jarvis Jay Masters. Now, Jarvis is a convict, a murder convict, a murder convict who is on death row for 31 years. He's still on death row and he's currently put up in a jail by name San Quentin in USA. And if you were to Google his name, I think the second link that comes from the top is freejarvis.org. And this is what the website reads right when you actually open it up. It says, my name is Jarvis Jay Masters. I have been on death row for 31 years for a crime I did not commit. Now, this book is not about Jarvis case investigation. It's not about journalism. It's not about the loopholes possibly that may have been in the legal case, or the way law looked at it. The book does mention about Jarvis' innocence, but it stops short of doing anything beyond that. And I think that's for the right reason. The entire way in which this book is written is for somebody to understand and appreciate the emotional journey that Jarvis has, and subsequently how Buddhism helps him going through the entire phase while he is in prison. All through the 30 odd years that Jarvis has been in jail, he has those battles, those inner battles with rage, against hopelessness, and against everything negative that will come out of it. And the way he does that is through meditation, through breathing exercise, and through just following a lot of Buddhist teachings. I think it would be pertinent for me to touch upon what exactly is Jarvis J. Masters' story, possibly just a summary of it. So, Jarvis J. Masters is an African American who was born in California in the year 1962. And when he was 4 to 5 years old, he and his sister were found in squalor, in abject dirt, in abject poverty, and they were taken away by the Child Protective Services. And since then, up till his teen years, and up till the time he then gets into the prison, he always stayed in one or the other government facilities, or otherwise with foster parents. So he's someone who did not really get a normal childhood. In fact, his childhood is anything but normal. Anything and everything bad that you can think of happened, whether it was substance overuse, whether it was for him to see what prostitution from a third person perspective looks like, and 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 really, really bad. Whatever you can think of as bad things is something that happened to him. It is therefore no surprise that when he was 19, that he was found as one of the person who was in an armed robbery at a store, and at that point in time he is put into jail. He is then convicted of that, and then he's put on into the prison for 20 years. When Jarvis is serving the 20 years prison time, after the fourth year, there happens to be an instant wherein a prison guard is killed. And 6 months after that incident, he finds out that he is the one who's convicted of the murder. Now, he maintains that he had nothing to do with it. But that's not what the jury believed. That's not what the court believed. And he has been since then on that death row because he's been sentenced to death. So this entire book is his journey of those 30 odd years, wherein he is initially that young guy who's full of rage, uh, who's just angry at system, who's angry at everything and anything, and thereafter how he starts to do some of those breathing exercise, starts to do some of the meditation, how he takes a guru, and how eventually he is called even as a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is somebody um, who's almost there when it comes to nirvana. He or she is there, and he or she has not really picked up or not decided to have nirvana, because they are just moved by the overall suffering of the world, and they are so full of compassion. So bodhisattva is a term that is used at that level, and on a number of occasions that term of bodhisattva is used for Jarvis J. Masters. Having read the book, there were three different things that I took out of the book. Number one, if you are able to watch this YouTube video, or even generally, if you're really listening to this, then you would just have a very good life. Unfortunately, it's again that theory of relativity, but by just comparing our life to sometime somebody like Jarvis, who's had so troubled life, who's had childhood uh, it's been really bad, and the overall situation is so sad. You realize how much God has already given you, right? So that was one part that I took from that. Second thing that I took from that was the impact of your surroundings and the impact of the company that you keep. So you need to be really conscious about the company that you're keeping. And uh, when I mentioned that, there is this incident in this book wherein Jarvis recollects that he actually had a choice to make when it came to his college time. He got an opportunity wherein he could have just gone back to, or not gone back, he could have just gotten into living a normal life. But at that point in time, he made a choice that he wanted to go back to the same surroundings that he came from, and that led to a journey which just went downhill from there. And the number three point that I took out from this book was the power of meditation. Meditation works, and the impact that it has on you to bring about calmness, to bring about a sense of peace, to evoke feelings like compassion and love is super awesome. It's just amazing. One cannot even comprehend what a regular dose of meditation can do to someone's life. So that's everything with this book. I bought a paper copy. I would recommend that if you want to buy this book, then you should go ahead and buy a paper copy. This is not an easy book to read. The point will not be whether or not you'll cry reading this book. The point will only be that how many times would you end up shedding a tear? How many times would this book tug at your heart? So, with that sort of a view, you should go ahead and read the book. And once you do read the book, I'm pretty sure you'll come back with the feeling of saying that how much is it that God has already given you. On that note, until my next video, you have a good time.